Happy Monday, folks. Welcome back to hashtag AskGSM, where I answer your questions from Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube right here in this video form. Big week coming up. We got Battleground this upcoming Sunday. So next week, when you send in your questions, you can tweet me on Twitter with the hashtag AskGSM, at WrestleRant, on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights. I'll probably put it up before the pay-per-view on Sunday, depending on whether I'm working or not. Or you can just leave a comment on the wall itself, or a comment on this very video. I'll be sure to include it in next week's edition. So just keep that in mind for next week's video. Of course, I film these on Monday mornings for the most part, and with the exception of the occasional vacation like a couple weeks ago, I usually do film these on Mondays. So don't ask me any predictions for Battleground, because this will be filmed after the fact. But also on Friday, we got July 17th. Got a couple cool announcements coming up on the Facebook page on Friday. July 17th is always my favorite day of the year. No, it is not my birthday. No, it's not a holiday. But in my mind, it is the 4-year anniversary of my favorite match of all time, my favorite pay-per-view in wrestling history, Money in the Bank 2011. That's why I'm wearing my CM Punk hat today, my CM Punk Pipe Bomb t-shirt. It is CM Punk Celebration Week here on hashtag AskGSM. But before we get started here, just without further ado, just two more things I wanted to add. One, thanks once again to John, my good buddy John, at _John's Jargon on the Twitter, for joining me last week for an awesome episode. We don't get together all that often, but even when we do, sometimes we can't film the videos because sometimes I see them on the weekends or during the week, whatever. But whenever we do get together to watch Raw on Mondays, we always film the video. We did it back in January, late last year. I know we did it during the summer. We did it just this past May. We did it last week as well. That was a great episode. Got a lot of cool feedback on that. So make sure to go back and check it out from here on hashtag AskGSM last Monday. And also on that note, forgot to mention in that video, but thank you for 2 amazing years of hashtag AskGSM. This video forum, hashtag AskGSM, celebrated 2 awesome years, I believe last Wednesday. So thank you for all your tremendous support. When we first started out, you can go back and watch the first episode. I cringe while watching because I just don't like the way I speak in those kind of videos and stuff. I think the show has come a long way since then, but at that point, we only got a few questions. The videos used to be 50 minutes long, if you can remember that. All my videos used to be 50 minutes long because I wasn't able to go over that because of YouTube's guidelines and whatever. But now that we've broken that mold, pretty much, so to speak, we can now go the full-on hour. So it's crazy to think how far the show has come in that period of time. So again, thank you for all your support. It means a lot to me. So without further ado, we kick off the show here today. At the first KFC from YouTube, their question was, should Tyler Breeze and Baron Corbin feud with each other? Oh man, I've been saying for a while now, my NXT reviews on nextyearwrestling.net, G-plug, that Tyler Breeze has been directionless for a while now, and it really sucks because I think he has a lot to offer. He is a very talented dude, but they just don't know what to do with him. And I'm hoping now that Kevin Owens is kind of main roster exclusive, he's no longer NXT champion, Finn Balor's the new champ, Hideo Itami's out for a while, Sami Zayn and a few other guys as well. Now is the time to start stepping up him as a potential challenger to that NXT title. We've seen him versus Balor a few times, I get that. But not enough to the point where, it's another match between Breeze and Balor, I look forward to their matches. They're so good. And I think if they were to be put together one-on-one in a championship match, it'd be awesome. And I think that'd be the perfect way to handle Tyler Breeze. I guess Breeze is a pseudo babyface. I'm not even exactly sure what they're doing with him right now. Baron Corbin, I've talked about him here on the show before. I like Baron Corbin, but I'm not going to say I've lost all hope. I mean, I'm going to talk about that a little later on in the video with something else. But there's very few things I've lost all hope in. That's not one of them. But Baron Corbin, the guy's been in NXT for almost 10 months at this point, and we really have seen next to nothing from him other than 2-minute squashes. His extended matches against Rhino and Bull Dempsey weren't terrible, but they didn't show me anything that screams star. Like a Finn Balor or a Sami Zayn or a Kevin Owens, whatever. It seems very limited. Unless they are really, really limiting his abilities and he's actually capable of much more. Unless that is the case, I don't think there's really much in the way of Baron Corbin being a future top star and competing 10-minute matches. I mean, Ryback used to do the same exact thing back in 2012. He came a long way in the mic. He came a long way in the ring. Baron Corbin might be something similar in that sense, but as of right now, I have seen nothing from him that indicates that he should be pushed. So putting a feud between the two directionless guys, the two most directionless guys in NXT right now, I don't know how much good you can get out of that. I mean, if Baron Corbin, he's another guy. Is he babyface? Is he heel? I have no idea. I think Baron Corbin needs a real feud Should that feud be with Breeze? I think Breeze is better than that, to be honest with you. I don't think Baron Corbin should be beating Tyler Breeze. Breeze should be at the NXT title level, if not the main roster already, because they clearly have no idea what to do with him right now. And I mean, I praise NXT at every chance that I get, but the guy's been down there for almost 2 years at this point, and I think it's time he gets promoted. And because he's kind of been floating, he's been kind of floundering in NXT right now, they really have nothing for him when he's actually ready for the next level. His next question, if Daniel Bryan returned for one more match, who should he face? I mean, there's a couple opponents that come to mind. I mean, I know last week someone asked the question of would I like to see Kurt Angle versus Daniel Bryan. I said absolutely. I think that'd be an amazing match. Do I think it's likely? Absolutely not. You know, Angle recently re-signed with TNA. I believe he's with TNA until next year, maybe late next year. I'm not really sure. But even if he does come in, Daniel Bryan is another guy. Like you mentioned, if he came back for one more match, his career might not even be going forward. So both guys, given their current health status, might not be, they may never get a chance to mix it up, which is very unfortunate. I think he should have come back earlier this year. But because of the contract they offered him and he didn't want to work full-time, which is completely understandable, WWE must have known that. That kind of fell through, unfortunately. But yeah, Kurt Angle, that's kind of a dream match. Realistically speaking, two names come to mind. There's probably others, but the two names that came to mind were John Cena, because I know people have been, myself included, have been petitioning for a rematch from SummerSlam 2013 for a while now. You do that in the main event of WrestleMania, or one of the featured matches is one more match for Daniel Bryan. Hopefully John Cena wouldn't get his win back in that situation, as Daniel Bryan's about to retire. I know he's on his way out, but it's not exactly like John Cena's an up-and-coming star. John Cena, Kevin Owens would be a fresh match. I don't know how likely that would be. You know, maybe Kevin Owens calls out Daniel Bryan, you know, every week going into WrestleMania, kind of like Bray Wyatt and Undertaker earlier this year, and then Daniel Bryan finally comes back for one more match at WrestleMania. That'd be pretty cool. Seth Rollins is another guy. I really wanted to see him face at SummerSlam. I didn't think it was in the books anyway, but I think a him versus Rollins match with Bryan, I don't. In this new scenario, this would not be the case, but had he not gone injured this year, this is how I would have booked it. Daniel Bryan still would have been the Intercontinental Champion. Now, I know a lot of people were hoping for a unification match between him and John Cena for the US and IC titles. That would have been cool, but I think it would have been even better if Daniel Bryan was the Intercontinental Champion and challenged for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship and won that title, doing the first unification of the IC and World titles since the Ultimate Warrior. Now, I know Triple H did it in like 02, 03 or whatever it was, but he was the World Champion when he did it. Warrior was the Intercontinental Champion when he merged the two championships, or, you know, at least won both at the same time, held both championships simultaneously. And I think Daniel Bryan could have been the perfect first person to do that since the Ultimate Warrior 25 years ago. Unfortunately, again, that's not the case because he had to vacate the title due to injury. But if he was to come back, maybe give him one world title shot, one more championship match, because like he said earlier this year, he never got his one-on-one rightful rematch for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship after being stripped of it earlier or late last year, last spring. So maybe he gets a rematch of the IC title and the World Championship on the same show, because he never really lost that IC title either. But anyway, though, that'd be a cool match. Maybe you give Daniel Bryan the WWE World Heavyweight title in his final match, and then you just vacate it after that and just do a tournament or something like that. That would be really cool, and you'd get one hell of a match out of Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins out of it, too. Justin G from Facebook's got a couple questions here. First one being, stables in wrestling today is a lost art, but what is the greatest stable in professional wrestling? I presume that you're talking about currently. Of all time, I'd probably go with the Four Horsemen. NWO, I mean, I love the NWO. I wouldn't call them the greatest of all time. A lot of people will tell you that they were only great for a certain threshold of time, or only a certain period of time in 1996. From that point forward, they were complete shit with all the members they added in. They are by no means the greatest stable of all time. Up there, but not nearly as being not being close to being the greatest of all time. Maybe D-Generation next, but I'd probably go with Four Horsemen. If you're talking about currently, no doubt in my mind, the Bullet Club. I mean, I can't even think of another stable that comes to mind in pro wrestling today. Maybe that I'm just not aware of. I love the Kingdom from Ring of Honor. What do we have today? The Authority, not even close. Not even close. Beatdown Clan, not even close. Easily the Bullet Club. Those guys are so freaking over in Japan, in the United States. Those matches that I see them wrestle. I don't really watch much Japanese wrestling, but when I do see them compete, whether it was the January show, the January pay-per-view, New Japan Pro Wrestling pay-per-view. I forgot what it was called. Global Force, that whole thing from back in January on the 4th was awesome when I saw them compete there. And the recent Ring of Honor shows, the Best in the World pay-per-view, those guys were fantastic. And easily the best pro wrestling stable today. I mean, I know they're not your typical heel stable because they are kind of cool heels. That's essentially what they are, but still, they're so popular right now. They are probably the best thing to a great stable right now in pro wrestling. His next question, I am seriously getting sick and tired of part-time wrestlers. Do you think that part-time wrestling will hurt the business if big-time show sellers like Brock Lesnar, who was already part-time, or John Cena? I mean, you didn't really finish your question there, so I don't know exactly what you meant by the second part, but I assume you're talking about, are part-time wrestlers hurting the business? Now, this is a lot of people have a lot of opinions on this, like on anything, obviously. But I mean, in this case anyway, I know CM Punk is very anti-pro wrestler, that too, I guess, currently, but anti-part-time wrestlers. And a lot of people see that it helps the business. Other people see that it hurts the business. I'm also of two minds in this. One, you need to make new stars. You can't have guys like Lesnar and Rock and Triple H main event WrestleMania every year. But at the same time, I am not at all against part-time wrestlers. I think they only help the business. Like I said, you can't sell a Mania main event on them every year because what are you going to do 20 years from now? The guys that should be the big stars right now, they will be next to none other than John Cena down the line. John Cena, I think someone asked me that recently, will he become part-time? Yeah, sure, down the line, like a Hulk Hogan kind of deal. Now my voice cracked there for a second, but Hulk Hogan kind of deal, but for right now, not even being close. I don't think he's close to being a part-time wrestler at any point in the near future. But no, I don't think part-time wrestlers hurt the business. I think guys like Brock Lesnar are great. I mean, when was the last time you got something like this? You know, before 2011, before The Rock came back, we never really had deals like this where people could come back on a part-time basis. I mean, there's different definitions of part-time wrestlers. You have guys like Rock and Brock, who only wrestle. I mean, Rock never wrestles anymore. I mean, he hasn't wrestled in 2 years, but he still comes back every once in a while. And he pops a big rating, garners interest in a pay-per-view, whatever. With Brock, he wrestles he wrestled a couple times a year. And I think that's great for him. Because like I've said time and time again, if he was on every Raw, if he wrestled every week, he would no longer be an attraction. He hates the travel. And I think the contract they signed him to earlier this year, I think is great for him. You know, I was so happy when he re-signed. He is not the sole highlight of WWE programming right now, but every Raw that he's on, I'd be hard-pressed not to say that the guy is the best thing going in WWE right now. I mean, I think there's other parts of programming that I really like at the moment, but every single time he's on Raw, it is must-see. That Cadillac the destruction of the Cadillac last week on Raw was phenomenal. You had, I'm trying to think of other moments. When he was on Raw a couple weeks ago and he laid waste to Seth Rollins and the rest of J&J Security and the Authority and stuff, he is always a highlight every single time he's on the show. You know, that's why it's so great to see Brock Lesnar back and that he resigned. So, no, I don't think so. I think guys like Lesnar, who is perfect as a part-timer, if he was on every week, then it would, that would hurt the business because people just wouldn't look at him as being special anymore. I mean, he'd still be a freaking attraction, but not nearly as big because he doesn't wrestle all that often as it is. So people are like, oh, Lesnar's going to be on the show. I have to watch. I have to go. I have to buy tickets to the show. Brock is going to be there, you know? But yeah, I do think that you also need to, at the same time, need to continue building up guys like Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, Bray Wyatt, Rusev, Kevin Owens, all these other guys from NXT, all these other up-and-comers. So at some point down the line, they also will be big names that people want to see back on an occasional basis. His third question, I am on Team Kofi for life, and I do not want to see him with this New Day group. I feel that he is much better in singles competition. Do you think the New Day group is a down point in his career? Honestly, no. I thought that when he was still a babyface trio, because it sucked. You don't need me to tell you that. Babyface New Day was terrible. At that point, that was probably the down point of his career. But right now, as heels, they also are one of the best parts of WWE programming right now, believe it or not. In my opinion, I think those guys are so great, and Kofi Kingston has a lot to do with that. The cheesy smile, and it's something new for him. You know, what a down point was for him was contending for the IC title, for Kofi Kingston U.S. champion. I don't care. You know, when he won that U.S. title a couple years ago, I didn't care for Kofi Kingston at all. 2013 was like the year that I turned on Kofi Kingston. I like Kofi, but when the guy's doing the same shit all the time, Kofi is U.S. champion, Kofi is IC champion. I know he's been tag team champion before, but never as a heel. He's never been a heel before right now, or at least on WWE TV. So I think for right now, I think it's great. I think the guy is so entertaining. I'm loving what he's doing. I think the New Day thing is great. It's not like Kofi's going to be a future world champion. That time is, come and gone. Big E, same thing. Xavier Woods. The best thing they could be doing with these three guys right now is to, continue doing the New Day thing. They can add in Bo Dallas. They can take out Kofi at some point. But I'm done as Kofi as a babyface for right now anyway. As a heel, the guy is so entertaining to watch, if only because it's something new. We've never, like I said, we've never seen Kofi as a heel before. So that's, I think, part of the appeal of Kofi as part of the New Day. And he's so entertaining because we've never seen him as a heel before. So, no, if anything, I think it's one of the highlights. I mean, he has not been this interesting to me since, God, I don't know, maybe 2010, since that Orton feud 5 years ago. I think he's ripping it up right now. I'm loving Kofi in the New Day. I could see what you're talking about, him as a singles competitor. The guy's very talented, but I'm so freaking over Kofi being the IC champion as a babyface, feuding with The Miz, feuding with all these other guys that I've seen him face a million times before. I don't care. I like Kofi, but what I like more is him doing something new, and I think this is something new, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it right now. Next question from Taha K. I apologize for the mispronunciation there. His question was, or first of two, being, if you had to pick a superstar of the year from January to this point in time, who would it be? I know Rolling Stone's the magazine. A lot of people are like, oh, Rolling Stone's is incredible. They got a shit list or whatever. That list they put out a couple weeks ago, the midpoint of the year awards or something like that. It was half real, it was half like kayfabe, half, WWE Slammy Awards categories, stuff like that. Like silliest promos and whatever, like stuff like that is like Slammy Award-esque. But I agreed with almost all of them. I thought they were great, especially their Superstar of the Year award, to this point in time, going to Kevin Owens. I think the guy, in WWE, he's only been here since May, but including NXT, I'm talking about the main roster, but including NXT, he arrived at the very tail end of 2014, made an immediate impact upon his debut, won the NXT title 2 months to the day that he debuted at NXT TakeOver, reigned as NXT champion through the entire halfway of 2015, had great matches with Finn Balor, Sami Zayn, stole the year with John Cena on pay-per-view twice, beat John Cena's debut match on pay-per-view, and his first official WWE match, if you're not counting NXT, is now going to be contending for the United States Championship this upcoming Sunday. I think there's no way that you can't give the award to Kevin Owens. Now, I know some people will say Seth Rollins. He's another guy I'd probably... I think better booked has been Kevin Owens, though. I mean, so far, RJ asked a question about Rollins' booking, and I'll get to that at the end. I think his question was the very last one. But a thing can be said for Seth Rollins being the Superstar of the Year to this point. I said he was the Superstar of the Year last year. I know WWE went with Roman Reigns for whatever reason. But I know, for me anyway, he was the Superstar of the Year last year. Through and through, the guy had the best year overall. This year, he cashed in Money in the Bank. WrestleMania moment, has been WWE World Heavyweight Champion ever since. Had Match of the Year candidate at the Royal Rumble. So I'd probably go with Seth Rollins as well as a close second. But I think Kevin Owens is the one guy over Seth Rollins right now, is hands down the best heel in WWE. I mean, he is the guy that, he is so invigorating right now. He is so fresh. He is so, entertaining to watch. Seth Rollins is too, but if I had to pick, right now, Raw being tonight, if I had to tune in for one part of the show, a Kevin Owens segment or a Seth Rollins segment, I'd probably go with Owens. I mean, the guy has, his matches have been amazing. Seth Rollins too. But I think the authorities kind of dragged him down a little bit. Kevin Owens, anyway, on the other hand, has been very, very good throughout his entire WWE run, and I'd probably go with Kevin Owens. I mean, Seth Rollins, I can also see a case being made for him if people want to argue that he is the Superstar of the Year up to this point, but for me, I'd probably have to go with Owens. His next question, and would you rather see London host WrestleMania, SummerSlam, or another pay-per-view? Cheers from the UK. I've been petitioning for this forever. I mean, as other many people have done as well, have wanted to see a WWE pay-per-view in England, and I could not agree more. I know the whole time difference and it just being a tourist attraction thing. I understand why they wouldn't do it, but, with the whole Beast in the East special, I know that was not a pay-per-view. It was kind of a special on a holiday on the 4th of July in Japan, on a Saturday, no less. But I think with that being done and the time difference and the WWE Network and all that other kind of thing, and I think it can be done. Honestly, I think it can be done. And I would love to see something like that happen. I don't know if they would do a pay-per-view there, but I think they should. Realistically, I would love to see WrestleMania in England, but I know because of the tourist attraction, like I said, they want to go for the big stadiums and stuff like that, and I know they can probably go to the O2 or wherever the Olympics were held a couple years ago in 2012. But just getting the Americans over there, I don't know, the travel and whatever else, I could see why they might not do it, but realistically speaking, I would love to see WrestleMania there, or a SummerSlam, or fucking Battleground, I don't care. I would love to see a WWE live event there. I know we get Raws there, which is great. I always enjoy Raw in England, but we need to make it live, especially with, with the WWE Network stuff now, and it can be done after we saw Beast in the East. Again, a pay-per-view, I'm not so sure, but I would love to. I would love to see a WrestleMania in England. That would be fantastic. I know John Cena kind of lobbied for it in a recent Raw promo, maybe just to get a cheap pop from the crowd. I have no idea, but yes, that is absolutely. I would love to see, love to see something like that down the line. If it's not in the near future, definitely at some point. SummerSlam in England again would be great, or WrestleMania would be best case scenario. Other Facebook questions include from Andre G. First Facebook question being, who should Roman Reigns feud with after Bray Wyatt? Now, I wrote down a couple names here. I put down Sheamus. I know we've seen that match a couple of times in the last couple of months, in the last couple of weeks, but they work well together. It's a fresh feud. We haven't seen it before. I know we've seen the match before, but I think we have not seen Sheamus and Reigns feud up to this point. It's something new for Sheamus, too. Rusev would have been a guy I would have not minded to see that feud, but Rusev has been freaking destroyed since this whole Lana, Ziggler, Summer Rae thing. It's total garbage right now. But Rusev is another fresh face that I would love to see Reigns face at some point. I don't know if it's all that plausible at this point because Reigns is up here and Rusev's down here after the terrible booking that Rusev has suffered up to this point, but that's another feud. And Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is another guy I wrote down for somebody who would you like to see so-and-so face or feud with, whatever. I put Owens down for that person, too, and I'll get to that in a little bit. Because he can go with just about anybody. He's been on WWE, the main roster, for only 2 months, and the only person he's feuded with is John Cena. Now, there's a ton of potential names that he could feud with. Ryback, Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, so many other fresh faces. I don't know if Reigns versus Owens, I feel like Reigns would win that feud, so maybe that's the kiss of death, and I don't want to see that happen right now, but if you're really looking for something new with Roman Reigns, him versus Owens, I would go with that. If Owens won, I guess. If Owens lost, maybe not, but it beats the hell out of seeing Roman Reigns versus Big Show again, I'll say that much. His next question, do you feel that Neville is just a sideshow because of the way they showcase him and keep on calling him the new sensation? I don't know why they keep on shoving that nickname down our throats. The new sensation, the newest sensation. What are they going to do months from down the line? What are they going to do later this year? They're just going to call him the sensation? The sensation Neville, I don't know, it's just goofy to me. But I love Neville, and I've talked about this here before. I talked about it on WrestleRant Radio last week, an excerpt here on that channel. But I just feel like they have no idea what to do with him right now. And it sucks because the guy is so great in the ring. And he is over. The people love him, and I think he's better than a Bourne type. I know Evan Bourne was this spot monkey. Oh, look, let's go see Evan Bourne do the 450 or the shooting star press, and that's all he's good for. The guy was an amazing athlete. They wasted Evan Bourne, but I think with Neville more so than Evan Bourne, the guy can do other things. I don't know if he could be a world champion, but they can give him a mid-card title. They could, continue to have him feud with top guys. That's something that never happened with Evan Bourne. I know he feuded with Chris Jericho for a cup of coffee like back in 2010. But other than that, though, the guy was a total spot monkey, is what they treated him as for the better part of the 6 years he was with the company. I think Neville is better than that. He can amount to greater things than Evan Bourne in WWE. I'm not saying he's better. I think he honestly is better than Evan Bourne. I think Evan Bourne's amazing. But I think Neville can do bigger and better things in WWE. I just don't approve of how they're booking him right now. Not that he's losing every week, but he's not doing anything. He's not even on TV. He wasn't even on Raw last week. They just have no idea what to do with him. And I think a feud with either Sheamus or Rusev or Owens or somebody. We already saw him in Owens before. Not feud. We saw a match a couple times, but that shouldn't matter. I think we could see Owens versus Neville as a feud down the line. That'd be pretty cool. Neville, Owens would probably win, but still, it'd be something awesome to see between two former NXT talents. But they just have no idea what to do with Neville right now. And it sucks because I think the guy is very, very good, and it does not deserve to be neglected on the main roster. A sideshow, right now they are. They're just kind of bringing him in to wrestle matches, but I think he deserves better than that and a real feud to be properly showcased on the program each and every week. His next question, do you think SummerSlam, the SummerSlam main event will be Sheamus versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship? There's a chance. I'm not banking on that right now. I mean, a lot of people might poop all over that match, like, oh, Sheamus versus Lesnar, that's going to suck as Sheamus is involved. A lot of people aren't all that intrigued by Sheamus. I get that, but the guy is a great wrestler when he has the right opponent. I think him and Lesnar has been a match. I talked about this last week when when we filmed the video with John. Lesnar versus Sheamus has been a match I've been dying to see, honest to God, since Lesnar came into the company 3.5 years ago. I think Sheamus and Lesnar can be a kick-ass brawl, an all-out, drag-out brawl between two just hard-hitting competitors. That would be phenomenal to see, especially given Sheamus' current gimmick and Lesnar just being frickin' Brock Lesnar. That would be a great match. Could we see it at SummerSlam? Absolutely. I mean, Brock Lesnar, if he wins the belt, and maybe Sheamus cashes in either at that pay-per-view or he cashes in on Sunday, it is very possible we see Sheamus as the, we see Sheamus versus Lesnar as the main event for SummerSlam. I'm going to be there in only 41 more days, so I'm looking forward to that, and I would definitely approve of being there live to see that match. But I feel like, I don't know what they're going to do with Lesnar. If they do a rematch with Rollins, that'd be pretty cool. I don't see why you would. I don't see how they're going to, maybe they have Seth Rollins lose here and they have him win the belt back at SummerSlam. I feel like that's kind of a waste, but Sheamus versus Lesnar is not my ideal main event for SummerSlam, but I could absolutely see it happening, though. I think there is definitely a chance, given the current circumstances, that we could see that match in the main event of SummerSlam. And his final question here, when he returns, do you think Tyson Kidd could become world champion in 2 to 4 years? Absolutely not. Now, I love Tyson Kidd, and the guy is great, but he doesn't scream world champion. He's a great wrestler, don't get me wrong, and the guy's an amazing competitor, but in terms of being world title caliber, there's so many other guys that deserve to be, not deserve, but I think there's so many other guys that should be at the world title level right now that Tyson Kidd's all the way down to the bottom. Cesaro, sure. Tyson Kidd, I can't see him being world champion. Maybe even when the World Heavyweight Championship was around, I couldn't even see him holding that title, much less one world championship. The guy's 35. He's been with the company for 6 or 7 years. If anything, give the guy a mid-card belt. I've been petitioning that for years now. I think him as Intercontinental Champion would be kick-ass. Him as Intercontinental Champion would be awesome. So, World Champion, absolutely not. And with all the injuries, too, it's not going to happen. But him as Intercontinental Champion, absolutely. Or United States Champion, absolutely. I think Tyson Kidd as a mid-card champion is money. And maybe not money, but I think it'd be a perfect fit for him given how great he is and how he is the hashtag workhorse of the WWE. Putting him as Intercontinental Champion would be awesome to see. Very well deserved as well. A long time coming. Moving into the Twitter questions, at Daniel Cabeza 59's got a couple questions here. First one being, do you think if WWE ruins Charlotte and Sasha Banks getting called up to the main roster, there will be no more hope for the Divas? So as I mentioned before, I don't want to completely lose hope in a lot of things. I mean, a Bad News Barrett being world champion, maybe I've lost hope in that. But for the Divas, there's always hope, no matter how badly they've booked them in recent years. I mean, the last 10 years since Trish Stratus and Lita left the company, the Divas have never really been the same since then, since they retired. I talked about this, though. I mean, my full thoughts, I don't want to go on a huge tangent about it right now, but I did write about this in an article for HiddenRemote.com last Thursday, I want to say. It's up there on the website, talking about could Charlotte and Sasha Banks, quote-unquote, save the Divas division when they get called up? I don't want to bank on it. I'm not going to be one of those people that say, oh, the Divas are going to be 10 times more interesting when Sasha Banks and Charlotte are up there. Not an indictment on their abilities. I think they are so great, and I'm looking forward to seeing them on Raw and SmackDown every week. But it's not the talent, it's the booking, And I thought the Divas division would be in better hands when Paige got called up, but within months, she was just another girl. She's great right now. She's over. People love her. I love Paige, and she gets great reactions, but character-wise, she is no different than anyone else in the roster. She's been babyface, heel, switching back and forth, showing those catty-like personalities where you have no idea whether she's a babyface or a heel. Why should I like her? The same exact thing. And it sucks, given how talented she is. And she could be the I don't know what the word is for that I'm looking for. Something bearer of that, the standard bearer of that division. And they just completely dropped the ball on that. Same thing with Emma when she was called up last year. What a disappointment that was. And I know she's finally getting her
feet back underneath her, and now in NXT, repackaging her entire character and just going underneath this entire new makeover, complete makeover, thankfully, because they completely freaking ruined her on the main roster, and that's all on WWE. That's all on the creative team. That had nothing to do with Emma. She's a great wrestler. She's a great talent. They just completely wasted her on the main roster. With Charlotte and Sasha Banks, if they continue to get 2 or 3 minute matches on Raw or SmackDown, it's not going to change a damn thing. You know, the people that are booking the women gotta go. They need to have someone else book the women. I talked about this. I mean, I tweeted this a while ago, but whoever is writing the women, freaking fire them. Put Triple H in charge of the women. Whoever is writing the women down in NXT, they are doing a phenomenal job, and they need to book the women the same way on the main roster. It's not as simple as maybe when Vince McMahon is gone, you know, Triple H is in charge, the women will finally get chances. I don't know if it's that simple. It might be. I don't know. But I feel like it's all lies within the creative. They need to be more motivated to deliver more consistent character development, storylines, longer matches. Not even longer matches, but give us a reason to care. A 20-minute Divas match is not going to matter if there's not a good story to it, if we have no incentive to cheer for either woman. You know, Naomi versus Nikki. Who the fuck should I cheer for? They're both heel. Why should I care? You know, it's not that I'm shitting on the Divas division. I mean, I kind of am, but it's not any reflection of how I feel of the women as talent. I mean, maybe for Rosa Mendes, like, she sucks, but I'm talking about the majority of the division on the whole. It's not their fault. It's the writing and how they are perceived. They have been so heavily damaged over the last couple of years that even the best of writing might not save them because people have just been designed to not care. It's going to take a lot. More than just a Charlotte or Sasha Banks call-up to truly, quote-unquote, save the Divas division, in my opinion. Next question of Daniel's. What could be a good headlining match for WrestleMania 32? Because right now, I don't see a match that can intrigue me. A couple matches. I don't know if they would main event, but a Shield triple threat for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. I talked about that. Also in an article I wrote for Hidden Remote a couple weeks ago, my dream card for WrestleMania 32. That was one of them. Again, I don't know if they would main event, but that would sure as hell be a great headlining match for WrestleMania. John Cena versus Undertaker. I know Vince is not very high on the idea of Taker versus Sting, which sucks because I think it is still a money match no matter how bad you think the match might be, but I think they can tell a great story, and that is the money match in my mind, especially in Texas of all places. But Cena and Undertaker would be a great final match at WrestleMania, especially if it's Undertaker's last. I know it doesn't have that same aura that it would have a couple years ago when the streak was still intact, but it would still be a great match for WrestleMania. And then finally, Triple H versus Rock. I know we've seen the match a million times before, but they have been teasing it. I'll give WWE where credit is due. I mean, they teased it back in late 2014 during the Smackdown special. They teased it at WrestleMania. Even if we don't get Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania next year, I feel like a Rock and Triple H match. You know, I would like to see Rock and Reigns or something new, but it would still be a great match. It makes sense from a storyline standpoint. It's not something completely random, you know? And it would be a big marquee match for WrestleMania that I could absolutely see happening. I don't know if I want to see it go on in the main event. I feel like there's a chance of that happening. I don't want to see that, to be honest with you, but I would have no problem seeing the match itself. So any one of those 3 matches, Shield triple threat for the WWE World Heavyweight title, Cena versus Taker, or Triple H versus The Rock could be very good headlining matches for WrestleMania in Texas next year. His next question, in the last hashtag AskJSM video, you said that Vince was poop on commentary. That I did. What were the qualities of Vince as a bad commentator? Well, a number of things. One, he was very generic. I know that you could say the same thing about Byron Saxton or a Michael Cole. He was like Michael Cole, but 10 times worse. And I give Michael Cole credit. I think the guy is good. I think Michael Cole is very good. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, and a lot of people might not agree with that, but I feel like Michael Cole, in the current era, is very good. He is no Jim Ross. He is not a Gordon Soley, not even close. But given everything that he currently has to deal with, and when he's motivated, he's very, very good. You know, more often than not, he's just kind of bland. But he is good, given all that that he has to handle with the promoting of this and that, and the fucking look at the car and whatever. That with the direction that he is given by Vince in his ear, I think he does a good job. But I feel like Vince was the version of Michael Cole back in 1990 or the late 80s, just 10 times worse. The what-a-maneuver shit, like remember CM Punk, 4 years ago, a couple days ago on the 11th, when they had the contract signing on Raw and between Punk and Cena and Vince, when they had,
not the second one before SummerSlam. It was right before Money in the Bank, and Punk was mocking Vince, and he said, "Oh, what a maneuver!" And he said that because that's exactly what Vince used to say in all the matches. He would sometimes call the holds. I mean, that was back before they banned the commentators from saying the names of the moves they were doing. But more often than not, he had no idea what he was talking about. What a maneuver! I mean, and I think moreover than anything else, I think what it was, the lack of emotion is another thing, but the fake laugh was the worst. And I know people, they just hate when Michael Cole, like, chuckles on commentary. It doesn't bother me too much. It is bothersome, but nothing was worse than Vince on commentary. The ha, 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 or whatever it was. You could tell he was fake laughing. It was the absolute worst. He was garbage. I hate Vince on commentary. I'm watching, like, all the old SummerSlam pay-per-views right now and all the other old content on the network, old pay-per-views from that era. I can't bear to listen to him. He is so bad. Maybe it's just me, but I just do not get any enjoyment whatsoever out of Vince on commentary. The guy is just so generic, and I know you could say the same thing about Michael Cole, but Vince is at it like a 12 on a scale from 1 to 10 in terms of being fake and corny and just, again, a lot like Michael Cole, just a lot worse with the fake laugh and just being way over the top. Cole as a heel I hated too, and that's what kind of the equivalent of this was. But Vince was a babyface, and he just felt like he was faking his way through it, and it just felt like, he was very scripted in what he was saying, and he had no real emotion, like I said. Just did not like Vince on commentary. One person's opinion. Maybe you love him on commentary. I sure as hell didn't. That much is for sure. Next question of his. Some people said that Mick Foley was not a wrestler, but a guy that takes high-risk bumps. What are your thoughts on that? That begs the question, what is a wrestler? Are we talking, a CM Punk or a Daniel Bryan that you have to know 20 different maneuvers? I mean, a man of 1,000 holds, much like of 1,000 holds, much like Dean Malenko. Do you have to know every single stretch hold, every single submission in the book to be a great wrestler? Or is a professional wrestler a performer, like a Shawn Michaels or an Undertaker, who might not be the... Shawn Michaels is, but for an Undertaker or a John Cena, who I think is great. I know a lot of people might not agree with that. I think John Cena is great, and it's not just the opponents he's in the ring with. He is a great performer more than he is a great wrestler, but he knows how to play to the crowd and rile them up and stuff like that. He is great at what he does. And so Mick Foley, was he a wrestler? Was he like a, hold by hold? What is the word that I'm looking for? A catch by catch? I forgot what the exact term was. But you know what I'm talking, like a catch wrestler or whatever it is? Absolutely not. He was no Daniel Bryan. He was no Owen Hart. He was no Bret Hart. He was no Shawn Michaels. But the guy could put on one hell of a show. I know what you're talking about. I know Ric Flair mentioned that in his book, and that he called him a glorified stuntman. And I don't agree with that. Stuntmen don't know how to play to a crowd. They don't know how to entertain the masses. They are just kind of there to take a bump. Mick Foley could take one hell of a bump, obviously, but he would do it because he knew how to entertain the crowd. He wanted to do it for the people. He wanted to do it for the fans, and he knew how to make people invest in him and care about him more than anyone else in the entire history of the WWE. That's why Mankind, Mick Foley, Dude Love, Cactus Jack, whatever you want to call him, was one of the most beloved characters in pro wrestling history because he knew how to connect with a crowd, unlike a stuntman would know how to do. Like, I'm thinking of an exact name does not come to mind right now, but someone can know how to take a bump, but they're not a great wrestler, they're not a great performer, or whatever. They can take a bump, sure, but can they entertain people? Can they sell tickets? Can they sell out arenas? Can they put butts in the seats? I'm looking at you, Tony Schiavone from WCW. That line always cracks me up, by the way. I love listening to that old Nitro. When Tony, and I know he had that line fed in his ear, but it's so not just because it's funny, because Mick Foley ended up becoming one of the biggest stars in WWE history, but just the way that he said it, I thought was so funny. I try to use that line whenever I can when making fun of something, like, oh, Mick Foley's gonna win their WWE championship tonight. Huh, that's gonna put butts in the seats. That was so funny to me. I don't know why. I just love it so much. But no, I would not agree with that. I think he was a great professional wrestler. He's not a Daniel Bryan or a Bret Hart, like I said before, but he is a great freaking performer. He knew how to make people care about him, invest in him, and he knew how to put on one hell of a show. That much more that can be said for just a glorified stuntman, in my opinion. His final question: who cut the better promos, The Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin, and why? That's like asking what I would rather live without, food or water. It's such a hard question. It's so subjective too. It's not a bad question, but it's one of those questions I can't really answer.
if you're going to ask me which promo, okay, you have one shot to look up on YouTube, a Rock promo or a Stone Cold Steve Austin promo. Which one would you rather listen to? If I had to pick one, The Rock. I thought he was more entertaining on the mic than Stone Cold. Stone Cold was great. Both are the two of the greatest mic workers of all time. Maybe not 1 and 2, but I feel like they're absolutely in the top 5, if not in the top 3. Both Austin and Rock. I know Austin had his great 316 promo. He was very intense. But The Rock, the stuff that he could freaking come off the top of his head and just improvise and just very quick way to just like that was amazing. That's why I love Rock. Even today, he's perfect at doing that. He just genuinely makes me laugh. One of the only guys, along with Kurt Angle too, I don't know what it is, one of the most genuinely funny guys in WWE history. Kurt Angle, Mick Foley, and The Rock are three of the funniest, in my opinion, for me anyway, 3 of the funniest guys in WWE history. I just love the chemistry that all 3 of those guys have with each other and also on the mic and connecting with the crowd, but I would have to go with The Rock in that scenario. Anyone else might tell you Stone Cold, or some people might agree with it's The Rock. And no, there's not a wrong answer in that case. Either guy is very acceptable of an answer. Either guy is an acceptable answer, but for me, I'd probably go with The Rock, just barely though. Moving on to the other questions, that's Scarlet One. Their question was, who should beat John Cena for the U.S. title, and when would be the ideal time? In my opinion, it should happen this Sunday. Kevin Owens should win the U.S. title from John Cena at Battleground. And here's why. Because we had Kevin Owens lose at Money in the Bank, which I thought was fine. I mean, I was a little, not pissed, but I was like, okay. But as long as he wins the rubber match, then we're good. And then he lost the NXT title. Again, made sense. Balor got a big win. It was time for him to win the championship and for Owens to move on to the main roster. But if you have Owens lose again, would it kill him? No. But would it hurt his momentum? I think so. To have him lose to John Cena twice, and then to lose the NXT title to him, it doesn't sit well with me personally. I mean, I guess we could see a draw on Sunday, and then maybe we have him win the title at SummerSlam, which I will also be at, like I said before. That'd be pretty cool, but I feel like the time is either on Sunday. I could see a no contest or like an Ambrose Rollins thing where they just brawl and no match actually happens. I could see that, and I'm fine with that. But, what am I even saying? What am I even talking about? Oh, a Battleground. Sunday would be the perfect time, in my opinion. Owens coming off those 2 losses, I think now is the time to put the United States Championship on him. So I'd probably go with this Sunday at Battleground. I mean, and if it's not Kevin Owens, then who is it going to be? If Cena ends this feud victorious, which would be the worst case scenario, I mean, we still get the U.S. Open, which is cool, but what do you do with Kevin Owens coming off that feud as a loser? And also, I mean, if it's not going to be Kevin Owens, who would it be? The only possible guy who would be better than Owens would either be maybe Neville, and also maybe Joe or Balor. Balor or Joe or Neville. Those are the 3 best case scenarios. One's the NXT champion, one's still down in NXT doing his thing. Samoa Joe. Neville, I don't know what he's doing right now. But I feel like if it's not going to be any one of those 3, any NXT guy, pretty much. If it's not an NXT guy, I know Neville's on the main roster now, but still, I still consider him to be an NXT original, whatever. If it's not one of those people, then who are you going to drop it to? Maybe if it's Cody Rhodes, that'd be pretty cool, but you could also do the same thing with Kevin Owens being champion, and maybe he drops it to Cody Rhodes later on this year. But still, I think John Cena going for the U.S. champ, or rather, Kevin Owens as U.S. champion would be the best case scenario. You keep the belt on him in the long term, and you have Sami Zayn in chase mode at WrestleMania. I talked about this in my hidden remote. Top 10 dream matches for WrestleMania next year. My projected card: Owens versus Zayn for the United States Championship in Texas, in Arlington, Texas, at the AT&T Stadium at WrestleMania 32 would be personally my dream match. Not dream match, but that would be my match for WrestleMania 32. Zayn and Owens for the U.S. title. #booking. Next question from @Hosea_Blevins. I mean, I know I mispronounced that last year too, and I probably did once again. If you could tweet me the actual pronunciation, I'd appreciate that. I'm so bad with pronouncing names, so I'm sorry. But his question was, and I really like this question, it said, what are your top 5 pay-per-views from before you started watching WWE or wrestling, whatever, in 2008? Very good question. If you asked me that a year ago, I probably would not be able to answer it because I had not watched any pay-per-views before I became a fan. But the network is a beautiful thing. And, I mean, it was kind of hard to come up for a top 5. I've really enjoyed a lot of the pay-per-views I watched in reviewing for WrestleMania, up every Tuesday and on the weekends. Cheap plug here on the channel. But, I I've enjoyed a lot of the pay-per-views I've watched, but of the ones that I've seen so far, my top 5 favorite, in no specific order, and you'll get why a few of these are on here. The 4 of the 5 should come as no surprise. But in no specific order, WrestleMania 21, SummerSlam 2002, One Night Stand 2005, Survivor Series 2002 as well, and Backlash 2004. Backlash 04 was just kind of a wild card. I was running out of pay-per-views to think of, but I love that show, and I watched that earlier this year. That was a show with Owens. He was probably in the crowd for that show. It was in Canada. Chris Benoit versus Triple H versus Shawn Michaels, triple threat for the world title in the main event, and also Orton versus Foley in the hardcore match for the IC title. So I love that show, but the other 4 pay-per-views should come as no surprise. As I've talked about here on the show before, my favorite years in wrestling are and have been 02, 05, 08, and 2011. Maybe 2014, I think 2015 will be my favorite year in wrestling when all is said and done. But I loved 02 and 05. So that should come as no surprise that I have 2 pay-per-views from each era on that list. WrestleMania 21 I think is very underrated. It created stars, Batista, John Cena, Orton, Rey Mysterio, Edge. So many stars were made at that pay-per-view. Even Orton in Defeat was made as a as a main event star on that show. SummerSlam 02, a great show. Really enjoyed that. Survivor Series, the same thing. A very well-rounded card. One Night Stand 05 was just a freaking fun show. I love that show. I watched it back on the 10-year anniversary about a month or so ago, and I love that show. It was so much fun. But yeah, those are my top 5 favorite pay-per-views before I started watching wrestling in 2008. Also, honorable mentions would have to be maybe SummerSlam 92, SummerSlam 97, WrestleMania 19 too, and those are a few that come to mind. Off the top of my head, anyway. At Cody Collier 37, his question was, who would you like to see Randy Orton feud with after his feud with Sheamus, and why? Same thing as I said before, Kevin Owens is the fresh face. I would like to see Owens and Orton over, or I'd rather see Owens versus Orton before Orton and, what the fuck am I saying? I would rather see Owens versus Orton before Owens versus Reigns. There we go. Because I feel like the match could be better, the feud could be better, and you knew that Owens is probably going to win, and Reigns, in his case, would probably win his feud. So I think Owens could get a big win over Randy Orton. It would mean something, too. So I'd probably go with Owens and Orton for the fall would be great. And if not that, then Bray Wyatt and Orton. I've talked about that for about a year now. I think that'd be a great, not a dream feud, but it would still be a really cool feud given their similar psychotic personas, and a WrestleMania match between the two would also be really good. Bray Wyatt would have to go over, though. I've talked about that before. He lost to WrestleMania this year. He lost last year. He has to win next year. Otherwise, people can argue right now that he's dead in the water, but I feel like he has to win to save his own WrestleMania legacy for his own sake. But yeah, future Orton feuds I would like to see with Bray Wyatt and Kevin Owens in the near future. At SwagZio, he's got 2 questions. First one being, who would you place on commentary for Raw and SmackDown? So, if I was, not fantasy booking here, I know this is not realistic, and I'm not talking about bringing people back from the dead like Gordon Soley or whatever, but I'm talking about, like, if I was in charge, I would rehire these people and put them on commentary. For Raw, Cole, JBL, a lot of people are going to get mad at that, but I feel like JBL can be good if he is not being freaking fed lines all the time, and him and Cole had great chemistry back in the day on SmackDown. And there was a reason for that, because he wasn't being overproduced, he wasn't over-obnoxious, he wasn't being the fucking cheerleader for the authority, So I think JBL can be good. But Michael Cole, JBL, and Jim Ross. For some reason, I love that trio on commentary when Jerry Lawler was out with the heart attack back in late 2012. I thought that was the best commentary team that we had in years. I thought that trio was so good. They were so focused, they were so spot on. That was right after JBL came back. They brought back JR for a couple weeks, and Michael Cole was babyface. It was the best possible commentary duo in a long, long time. So I love that trio. On SmackDown, I would put Tom Phillips, Jerry Lawler, who again is fine in small doses on SmackDown. I would put him on SmackDown over on Raw. Over then on Raw, that being said. Tom Phillips, Jerry Lawler, and William Regal. I loved him on commentary in NXT. I think, he has his plate full right now with his NXT duties, so it might not be that likely, but it would still be cool to hear him weekly on SmackDown. Realistically speaking, like I said, that was my fantasy booking teams. I know Regal's not going to do commentary. He's currently busy with NXT. If he's not going to do commentary for NXT, he probably wouldn't do it for for the main roster. And then I know Jim Ross, they're not going to bring him back, or at least any point in the near future, to do commentary on a regular basis. That's probably long gone, but they're probably going to bring him back maybe for like a one-off at some point down the line. But for a regular gig, his days have come and gone, unfortunately. I mean, you can ask Vince. He could still go today, but Vince has something against JR, unfortunately. But anyway, realistically speaking, my commentary teams, given the current teams in WWE, on Raw, just Cole and JBL. We do not need a three-man booth. I feel like just Cole and JBL, as I mentioned before, have really good chemistry if it's just them two. And I would love to see them, just those guys, on SmackDown. Just on Raw, because Cole is if you want to admit it or not, the voice of WWE. And he's the top commentator. He's the lead commentator in WWE. And so I would just put those guys on Raw together. I think the three-man booth is too much of a clusterfuck, and Booker T is not good. I would just take him off completely. Byron Saxton, I'm not a fan of. I think he is very bland and boring and stale. But yeah, I would go with Cole and JBL on Raw, and on SmackDown, Jerry Lawler and Tom Phillips. They do main event commentary sometimes, and I think they're very good. I think Tom Phillips and Jerry Lawler have good chemistry together. Jerry Lawler is focused on the action. He's not being distracted. He's not always telling terrible jokes. And I think those guys are good too. I've always been high on Tom Phillips. I think he's very good as a commentator. And I think he could be the next Michael Cole once Michael Cole is gone from WWE. And I would put him on Raw at some point. But for right now, him as the lead commentator for SmackDown would be great. So him and Lawler on SmackDown, and then Cole and JBL on Raw. His second question, what wrestling show do you look forward to most on a weekly basis? I always look forward to Raw. I mean, it's not always the greatest show of the week, but I always just look forward to Raw. But I'm always excited for from a quality standpoint. I know we're in for a great show this week. I don't think that when I'm watching Raw. I just look forward to Raw because I'm a mark, because I just love wrestling, obviously. But what show do I think I can't wait for this show? It's going to be great this week. It's a tie between NXT and Lucha. I'd probably go with Lucha Underground, if only because it's almost always great. NXT has its weeks where it's just kind of boring sometimes. NXT is almost always very good as well, but Lucha Underground, they're consistent storylines, and they don't have pay-per-views, so they don't have to build towards anything. They just kind of build on a week-to-week basis, and the season finale is coming up, unfortunately. I'm kind of sad about that, because Lucha Underground is so great, but the one wrestling show that I'm always thinking to myself, wow, I can't wait to watch this. It's going to be great every single week. Lucha Underground beats NXT out just by a smidge. NXT too, but Lucha Underground, I know every week I'm in for an amazing night of action and storylines. Final three questions here. First one coming from at RJ_Marcel, my good buddy RJ from Wrestle Rant Radio. His question was, has any superstar been better booked after they debuted on the main roster than Seth Rollins? We talked about this before. RJ and I did on Twitter not too long ago, and I said Owens. Has anyone been better booked from their WWE debut to present day than Owens? And he rose up. He brought up the argument of Seth Rollins and the rest of the Shield too. But I feel like Ambrose and Reigns have not been perfectly booked. For the most part, they have been, but Owens more so than those guys. Some people will say that Rollins is losing his, not credibility, but he's just kind of losing his luster because he's, winning every match in a chicken shit heel way, and they're not booking him the right way, whatever. I wouldn't fully agree with that. I do agree with that to an extent. I do think he has to split from the Authority sooner rather than later, but I feel like he's a much better fit for the Authority than Randy Orton was. It was a terrible champion. I just didn't care about his reign at all. Rollins, though, I thought has been very, very good since WrestleMania. He's always been great since he arrived in the main roster. And the only reason I would say Owens, it's hard to say Owens because he's only been here for 2 months. He beat John Cena his first night on his first official WWE match, not counting pay-per-view. And, his first night on Raw, he took out John Cena. But, Owens has 2 months on him. Rollins has 3 years. So it's easier to say for Rollins because he's been here for so long. Owens, we got to wait and see. Ask me again in a year ask me that same question a year from now, and we'll see if we have the same answer. Rollins, I would go with for right now. You're talking main roster. You're not talking NXT. But even in NXT, he was NXT champion, much like Owens was. But yeah, I feel like Seth Rollins, in the history of WWE, I don't know. There's maybe 1 or 2 people. I'm not really sure. Even Lesnar was awesome. He wasn't always greatly booked throughout his entire WWE tenure, even his most recent run, when he lost to John Cena and then to Triple H for no reason. But his first run with the company, losing to Big Show of all people, come on. Big Show, really? But still. Of all time, it's hard to say, but to my memory, no. I mean, other than Owens, but like I said, we gotta wait. Gotta give some more time for that to really settle in, and we gotta see more from Owens and to see how he's booked. But in the last 3 years, I think Rollins has been the best booked superstar, at least in the last decade. No one else comes to mind. He's still interesting. He's still having great matches. So, yeah, I would go with Seth Rollins as the best booked superstar in recent memory. Final two questions. First one being from at Big Bird 432. Who on Tough Enough stands out the most to you and why? ZZ he stands out a lot. Not for the wrong reasons. He's not good athletically. He cannot complete any of the challenges, and that's why I don't think he's going to win. But he's very charismatic. He's very funny. I think he's very funny to watch. He's great to watch. He's great for that show, but I don't think he's going to win. Patrick, I don't know if he stands out, but I feel like, because you look at him, he's like, what's so special about him? But when he goes in there, does his thing, he's a great talker. I know he has pro wrestling experience, but he's a fan of the business. He's a great athlete. He's got charisma. I don't see why they shouldn't give him the contract. I love Tough Enough right now. I'm really enjoying it. I know a lot of people aren't. Me personally, I'm liking it, and I feel like just give him the fucking contract. Just give him the contract, end the show right now. Patrick as your next WWE superstar. He's earned it. John made the comparison. He is the Shelton Benjamin of this current generation if he wins, and I couldn't agree more. I saw that, I'm like, wow, he's absolutely right. And for that reason also, I want to see Patrick win the thing. I think he deserves it. Of everyone that's on there, I think he's the most ready, and he would make a great WWE superstar. Final question from Unsolved22. His question was, what has been your favorite SmackDown match this year? Maybe there's a few that haven't come to mind. I mean, there's been some good SmackDown matches, not as good as, not as many as years past when it was the wrestling show. Now it's just kind of the Raw rematch show, but two that came to mind, Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose. Before the whole feud got started, I mean, the most recent feud anyway, the recent incarnation of it, a couple days before their May 4th match, so it must have been the final day of April 30th, I guess. It was on that Thursday SmackDown before they had that awesome match on Raw in Canada. That was a great match, and also the IC title gauntlet match. It wasn't for the IC title, but it did have the challengers for the Intercontinental Championship going into WrestleMania. It had Luke Harper, Daniel Bryan, and Ziggler. That's when we had that awesome Bryan and Ziggler match. The match went on for like a half an hour. I don't know if it was the main event of SmackDown, but that was a great match, and I'd probably go with that as my favorite SmackDown match of this year. Maybe there's more that just don't come to mind, but that's probably my favorite match that has happened on SmackDown so far in 2015. So that is going to do it for this week's edition of #AskGSM. As always, guys, thank you for sending in. I appreciate it. If you want to send in a question, make sure to tweet me on Twitter with the #AskGSM at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook. Give the page an old thumbs up. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews, and also leave a comment on this very video. I'll be sure to include it in next week's edition. If you didn't catch any of those links, they're right down there in the description box below. As always, guys, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. Have an awesome rest of your week, and I'll catch you folks right here next week on #AskGSM.